Stranger Things by far is one of Netflix's biggest shows and biggest achievements to date. The first season was released on 15th July in 2016 and very quickly became a hit. The show was revolutionary in a way. However, as a regular viewer and not necessarily the craziest of fans of the show, it seemed like ever since season 1, this show has been chasing the heights of cultural relevance it had when it first premiered. And I do kind of blame Netflix for that. It's common knowledge at this point that Stranger Things was meant to be a limited series, but then it started making money, and unfortunately Netflix noticed and dollar signs appeared in the eyes of its executives. And then the Duffer Brothers, the creators of this show, encountered a bit of a problem. They created a fully complete first season. The entire thing worked so well, it was so cohesive, it was fully realized to the maximum. Every single storyline was wrapped up by the end of the season. If they had just left it there, it would have been remembered as one of the best limited series to ever exist. But no, Netflix had to get their little greedy hands in the mix, and we ended up with 5 seasons of this show, which got progressively worse as time went on. The Duffer Brothers kept on making more things up, convoluting the lore, introducing more characters, creating more weird plot points, and essentially reached the point in which the show feels like a caricature of itself. There are a lot of things that are very clearly wrong about season 5, but one thing that caught my attention specifically was the treatment that the queer characters have received this season. I've been curious to see how the Duffer Brothers would solve the whole storyline of Will and his queerness, which has been hinted at a lot in the past, but here comes episode 7, which... oh boy. Let's just say I have a lot of things to say about it, and very few of them are positive. Like, at this point, I am actively rooting for Vecna. Hello, my name is Freyr. I'm your favorite local forest gremlin and a Polish sociology student, and I want to welcome you to my little corner of the internet where I discuss all forms of popular media that interest me, whether that's books, TV shows, or music. Today we're doing something slightly different because I don't think I've ever made a single video, whether it was short form or long form, about Stranger Things, but I have so many things I want to say. Full context before I even start talking, I've always been a Stranger Things enjoyer, but I wouldn't necessarily call myself a fan. Like, I have seen some of the memes, I get some of the things that have happened in the fandom, and I've watched every season up until this point, but I wouldn't necessarily call myself like a crazy fan of Stranger Things, if you know what I'm saying. I would say that this is actually the most like active I've ever been in this fandom. I mean, I am like watching the memes, I am reposting some of them. I definitely find the edits with Abby Lee Miller being added into certain scenes from the show very, very funny.
5, 6 kids?
4 to 6.
3 girls, 3 boys.
No!
Everything you hear in this video comes from a place of somebody who likes Stranger Things but doesn't really love it. You know, I'm not like a crazy Stranger Things fan. So I don't know, maybe my perspective is going to be a little bit different because I'm not like that obsessed with it. I just kind of enjoy it whenever it happens. But we'll see. Also, big spoiler alert if you haven't seen all the episodes of Stranger Things up until this point, because I'm going to be mentioning things from all the different seasons. So if you haven't seen them, just be aware there are going to be spoilers. Of course, before I go into the actual yapping that you're going to witness in this video, I would like to quickly remind you to please subscribe to the channel. Most of you watching are not subscribed, and that makes me very, very sad. You can also like the video, you can hype it, you can comment down below, you can share it around with your friends, and you can also follow me on all of my other socials, which are listed in the description box below, and those include Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, for example. I also want to give a big shout out to Kat on Twitter, who looked over the notes I have for this video to make sure that I wasn't talking complete and utter nonsense. You can also subscribe to her YouTube channel, which is going to be linked in the description box below. Also, very quickly, I do have a Google Forms in the description box below as well, and you can enter video ideas into it. If you have any ideas that you would like to see me cover, that is the best place you can enter them. This video is going to be divided into multiple parts. The first one is going to be focusing on the overall writing of different queer characters in Stranger Things. The next part is going to be more so about the coming out scene we saw in episode 7 and why it did not work. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about how I would personally fix it as a writer in order to make it slightly less, you know, bad. Then after that, we're going to be focusing on some other coming out scenes that we've seen in different shows and different films. And I'm going to be talking about why I think maybe they're good examples of a coming out scene, or maybe they're bad examples. We're going to sort of compare it to the coming out scenes we see in Stranger Things specifically. And last but certainly not least, I'm going to be talking a little bit more about why I think it all matters and why I think the coming out scenes and the whole discussion around Stranger Things specifically because of Will's coming out is extremely important, why it all matters, and also what I think the future has in store for Stranger Things. So as you can see, we're going to be talking about a lot of different things today. I have 10 pages worth of notes, which is a lot. And knowing me, I'm probably going to be here for like 3 hours talking, but hopefully the video is going to be somewhat watchable. So yeah, of course, before we get into the now pretty much infamous coming out scene from episode 7, volume 2, season 5, let's get a closer look on how the Duffer Brothers and other writers for Stranger Things have written queer characters up until this point. First of all, there's not much really to talk about here, considering that we only have 2 really big queer characters in the entire show, and that is Robin and Will. You could technically also count Robin's girlfriend. However, she gets so little to work with that I don't really know if there's much that I can say about the way that she's written. She's just kind of there, and she doesn't really do much. I mean, she's been doing a little bit more in season 5, of course, but I don't think there's enough to observe anything too interesting with her. What I do find very weird though is there's not many queer characters in the show, and still their writing is so inconsistent because you have Robin, who is written very, very well in my opinion. And then you have Will on the other hand, who, I mean, we're gonna talk about in a second, let's just say that. I believe that Robin is a well-written character and good representation. Ever since her introduction in season 3, she has instantly become an absolute fan favorite, and I mean rightfully so. She is iconic. There are a lot of things that make Robin a very, very appealing character and one that many people relate to. Mostly you can see she is a very multi-dimensional character. You see her in a lot of different relationships, and she also is in a couple of like fan favorite friendships of the show. Specifically, her friendship with Steve is very, very wholesome, and I love them two together. Her coming out scene, although we're going to talk about it a little bit more later on, is very, very impactful, and I would say one of the most beautiful moments of the entire show. I think it's done very, very well. I wouldn't say it's perfect, but it is well done. I actually think that her story, first with Tammy and then of course with Vicky, and how she deals with the fact that she is a lesbian, is actually very, very well done. Again, don't think it's perfect, but I think it's closer to like the authentic representation that the show can offer, especially considering the fact that this is the 80s. Also, I do think that one of the main factors as to why Robin works so well as a character is because she is acted out perfectly. Maya Hawke gives this character so much more life and so much more dimension with her performance. And even though she isn't a main character in the show, I think her relationships with both herself and with other people have been fleshed out very, very well. I mean, in parts, and we're gonna get into that a little bit later, but altogether, I do consider Robin to be a good example of representation that is actually done pretty well, especially for Stranger Things standards, because let's be honest, this show is weird when it comes to characters that are different minorities. And I mean, I don't think there's any beating around the bush this time. We have to kind of talk about the way that Will is written specifically. Listen, full context, I dislike Noah Schnapp just as much as the next guy, but let's not pretend that the material he was given to work with was good in the first place. I think there's a lot of narrative potential with Will specifically, especially when you look at earlier seasons of Stranger Things. That being like season 1, season 2, when it's sort of kind of hinted at that he might be queer, he might be gay, there might be something going on, but we don't get like an actual confirmation. I would say that it really starts in season 3 though, because well, in that season, Will is kind of like the main NPC of the entire cast. Like he is just there as like set decoration, and the only thing he does is get goosebumps when the flesh version of the Mind Flayer, I forgot what it was called, is like doing something, and the other thing he does is complain about his other friends liking girls and not wanting to play D&D with him, which, I mean, relatable, I guess. I think it's a good step in a way. It's a hint. It's some sort of like foreshadowing. I think it's okay, I think you can work with this. This is a good foundation for something. Like, you can make this into an actual like plot, into an actual character arc. We also see even earlier than season 3 that Mike is a character that is very, very important to Will. And so a more observant viewer is going to put 2 and 2 together. And I think that's why the bilership even exists in the first place. Season 4, when it comes to Will, is a how do I put it? It's tough for him. Let's just say that. Just in general, I did not like season 4. Season 4 so far is my least favorite of the seasons. I mean, we're gonna wait until season 5 wraps up, and I think that's gonna be my least favorite. But just in general, I did not like season 4 whatsoever. And Will in season 4 is just, girl, like, what are we even doing now? He gets promoted from set design to a set prop in a way that the Duffers clearly understood that they didn't do much with him in season 3, and that there was a lot of complaining about how some of these characters kind of don't matter anymore. So they are trying to do something with him, but the way that they try to give him something to work with is just very, very sloppy in my opinion. He spends this entire season drooling over Mike and being jealous of 11. Yeah, valid, I guess. I mean, but the way he tries to get Mike's attention is just so like, it's very weird. Him trying to get Mike's attention isn't well written. Like, this is how it looked like to me when I watched it first. Hey, Mike. So I know we haven't really talked for a long time, but there's this new show that I've been watching on my mom's TV, and I thought that you would really like it. And I mean, maybe you've heard of it actually. It's called RuPaul's Drag Race. I don't think I've heard of it. Okay, where's 11? Hey, Mike. Listen, I found this very, very cool new album, which is, it's called Brat by Charlie XCX. Actually, you want to listen to it? No, I'm going to go and find 11 because she got kidnapped by some federal agents, you know? Hi, Mike. So listen, I bought this Labubu recently, and I thought that you might also like them. So I also bought you one. Would you like it? Sure. Thanks a lot. And now, where's 11? That is how the entirety of season 4 looks like to me when it comes to Will's character. Genuinely, that's how it just looks like. When he finally does talk to Mike about his feelings, it is a very important moment, and I would argue it's probably his best moment in season 4. However, the rest of it is just so, I don't know. First of all, it feels insignificant. Like, the entire plot of season 4 is so just like all over the place, because you have these characters split into these groups of like 5 and 6 people, and all are doing something different that is meant to somehow tie back in the end. But some of these plot lines just feel so boring and so just like unimportant. Like, I'm sorry, I never cared about the Russian thing in season 4. I never really cared about the 11 thing as well. These two plot lines, when compared to the whole Vecna thing, are so boring and so just uninspiring. Whenever they would be on my screen, like Mike, Jonathan, Will, I would be like, okay, can we skip forward? Can we get to the actual good thing? Because this is boring as hell. And because of that, everything that they do with Will just feels so like out of place. Like, we have greater, problems right now. We have some sort of fucking demon from the upside down murdering people. 11 has been kidnapped. Joyce and Murray are like in Russia for some reason, and you're over here doing that. Like, the timing is just wrong. It is like some sort of a setup for a potential storyline in season 5. So like, I don't hate it for that. I just think it could have been better. It's a foundation that you can work on, but I wouldn't necessarily call it like a good foundation. Know what I'm saying? But then season 5 comes along. And I would say that the alternative name for season 5 could just be the assassination of Will Byers' character. And it's not because they stop caring about him. No, I would actually say it's the other way around. It's because they care about him way too fucking much in this season. And that's why he comes off extremely unlikable. He gets shoehorned into that main plot with the subtlety that reminds me of these like battering rams that were used to break down the gates of like medieval castles and cities. That's the subtlety that the Duffer Brothers had when writing Will's arc in season 5. Suddenly, Will becomes the main character again. Well, sort of, kind of, because this season is very, very weird when it comes to its main characters. It's kind of difficult to tell, actually, who is the main character, because you have Holly Wheeler, of all people, having the most screen time, but that's besides the point. Every single thing that Will Byers has done up until this point in the previous seasons comes back and culminates into the absolute shit show that was episode 7. Will is on this like self-acceptance journey in season 5, which is, I guess, cool to see. However, the execution is just not there. You know, he has his like little talks with Robin. If you actually come to think of it, he has his like little epiphanies. He gets pressured by Vecna, which is, I guess, a very important plot of season 5, specifically volume 2. Then it all culminates in him coming out. Cool. My main problem with this specific trajectory for him is it feels so sloppy and so undercooked when compared to someone like Robin, for example. And Robin isn't even like the main character. Like, how do you write a side character better than your main character? She has way less screen time to work with, and for some reason she feels like such a more realized person. She feels so much more alive, so much more involved in everything, and so much more important to the story than your main character that you have been forcing down everybody's throats for the past several episodes. How does that happen? It genuinely feels like the Duffer Brothers had like some sort of like bullet points checklist when they were writing this season, and they were like, okay, now we need to have Will talk with Robin, because Robin is the only queer person in the show aside from Will who actually matters. Then we need to have Will come out. Then we need to have like him think about his childhood or something. Like it genuinely feels like you're checking off a list. It doesn't feel like you're writing anything creative. They knew they had a very, very popular character on their hands for some reason with the fandom. I don't really understand Will's popularity that much. Like, there are so many cooler characters in the show. Like, Max is literally right there. They also 100% knew that he is a part of a major ship in the fandom, and instead of either appealing to the people of said ship, that being Byler, or appealing to the people that like ship Mike with 11, I think it's called Maleven, I believe that's the name of the ship, they decided to just like appeal to no one and break both of these ships up, because Byler isn't true. It never was going to be true, but we're going to get into that. And Maleven doesn't happen either, because they do also kind of break up. So yeah, everyone gets equally pissed off because nobody gets the ending that they wanted. No one. And the cherry on top is like, you can't even really like tell whether they broke up for real. Like it's the breakup scenes this season have been interesting to say the least, but that is a topic for another day probably. It feels lazy, it feels unauthentic, it feels undercooked. It does not feel fully realized to me. Like, you can tell there was no queer person actually writing this, because I can guarantee you any queer person in that room would have been able to look at that script and add so much more depth with just few little changes. One of the biggest moments of season 5 specifically has been the Robin and Will talk in the tunnels, where Robin sort of talks to Will like indirectly about her experience of like coming to terms with who she is and with her own sexuality. It's never really like specified that that's what she really means, but you can very much assume that that's what it is, considering, you know, who she's talking to and the certain flashbacks that play during that scene and the words that she speaks. Like, as a queer person, I immediately understood what she was getting at. And actually, I think that scene specifically is a great example of what I was just talking about. The writing being very, very weird. Every time they talked about emotions this season, it has been very, like, interesting. It doesn't feel sincere. And I mean, especially in that moment, Robin finishes her big speech. Will is over there having like a full-on epiphany, being like, oh my god, yeah. He's reliving all of these like moments that he spent with Mike. He's remembering who he was as a kid. And then somebody turns to them and they're like, hey, are you coming? Like, what are you doing? We need to hurry up. We have some like kids to save from a military base or something. And they start laughing. Why is that scene treated like some sort of funny, haha, bonding moment? Why is that? This is supposed to be a moment where Will sort of starts to accept his identity. And, you know, you have all of the flashbacks. You have Robin You have Maya Hawke over there acting her ass off in that monologue, and it just all like flops in the end. Like, there are so many good elements. I can tell you, if I had been in that room for 10 minutes, I can guarantee you I would have been able to write a better ending to that scene than whatever the fuck we got. But the way that it ends specifically and the way that Noah acts this out is just not fitting for what the occasion was. And the laughing specifically, like, that is such a subtle little detail, but like, and I know most of you watching probably didn't even notice this, but to me this was so like offensive in a way. Like, this is such an important moment to him, to his entire character arc actually, and you're brushing this off as some sort of like funny haha bonding moment between like two besties. Like, it's not what this is. I wish that he had like responded seriously and been like, or just be like, thanks Robin, thanks, that meant a lot, or like, now I understand, you know. I even that could have been better than that, because now they're just laughing like Robin told him like a funny fucking joke. It's not a joke, it's a queer identity. It's a queer story of coming to why is this treated as a joke? But that is probably like a very like insignificant issue when you compare it to the rest of the season. Another controversial element of how Will has been written in this season is the whole Vecna thing. Of course, his connection to the whole mind hive has been exaggerated. Let's just say that now he has powers just like Elle has, and his connection to Vecna is way stronger than it was before, which I do also find funny from like a narrative standpoint, because Vecna in season 4 didn't give two shits about Will. I don't think they ever like interacted. Actually, I don't think they ever interacted. And now suddenly Vecna is like, oh, Will Byers. Like, okay, sure, whatever. And this plotline has been the talk of the town ever since volume 2 dropped. There is an entire plot in this second volume about how Vecna like intends on using Will's sexuality, his identity, which he hasn't really shared with anybody aside from Robin, like against him. That of course is horrible. Like, that is an abuse tactic. And of course, Vecna is a monster. Like, that is not a good person. We all know that, right? But to do that to a queer person specifically, just whenever that is done in different shows, it always makes me so uncomfortable, because I can very, very clearly imagine a scenario like this. I don't really like seeing characters be pressured to come out. I think just in general in media, I don't really find that appealing personally. I do, however, think that there are elements of it that can work narratively. Like, I think it can be empowering to see, you know, these queer characters take their own story, their own identity into their own hands and come out and show that they're not afraid, you know, kind of remove the element of emotional blackmail from the equation. They are actively facing, you know, that fear of judgment, but sometimes it goes a little too far, and I think Stranger Things is a great example of this. I don't, however, think that we shouldn't be seeing plots or story arcs that are like this. It does make me personally uncomfortable, but I do kind of think that that's like the point. I think it can be helpful for the viewers to understand how much societal pressure and shame and guilt is put on queer individuals, regardless of where they are born or what time they live in. There's so much pressure on queer people to conform to the standards of society, which is very much heteronormative and cisnormative as well. Sexual identity, in a way, is not really that significant of a fact, but it can be used as a tool to manipulate someone because they're scared that that secret is going to come out and suddenly they might be judged by everyone. It's a real life scenario in a way. But this show doesn't do that. It doesn't feel empowering. It doesn't feel brave. What it does feel, though, is rushed.
About you, your mother, your fucking kid, or that dog of yours. Fuck them all. Yeah, bitch. Fuck.
And I mean, I don't think the acting really helped, but that's a different conversation too. You have to be careful with a storyline like this. You can't just throw that storyline into your show for like shits and giggles, dilly-dally, and think that everybody's gonna be like clapping and applauding because you have a queer character coming out and like taking their own fate in their own hands. It doesn't work like that. If you introduce elements like these, execute them well, or don't bother. Because if they're not executed well, I'd argue they can cause harm. You also end up with a very, very negative perception from the fans, from the people watching, from the critics as well. There has been a lot of conversation specifically around the way that these queer characters are written, specifically Will, which mention queerbaiting. And is it queerbaiting? No, but also yes. This case is very, very tough, in my opinion, to solve because I can see both arguments in a way. On one hand, you have to look at the material that's provided, and that is the show. The show never really points us to think that Mike might like Will back. He is a friend to him, but it's very clear that he is just a friend. And the way that Will looks at him and every conversation they have, it's very clear that this is a very, very one-sided thing. So in that regard, I don't think that this was more than shippers just wishing that their ship would become real all of a sudden. And also, don't get me wrong, like, been there, done that. I know the pain. I very much understand. Girl, Merlin, I will never forgive them. I don't think I've ever rewatched that show since I finished it for the first time because I was just so upset. Like, I have been queerbaited. But also, on the other hand, I would potentially call the Byler thing a queerbaiting situation, mostly because of how the actors and the creators of the show have been speaking about this ship. They were bringing up the idea of Byler, and that gave people hope. And I think that in and of itself could count as a queerbait. So the answer is both no and yes. This is something that I personally would like to hear you guys speak on about as well, because I don't really have that much of a context from like the fandom because I'm more chill with Stranger Things typically. But personally, I'm leaning towards no, but I can see both ways.
I am done with Taylor Swift. Yup. I was a Swiftie. I was down.
But also in that case, when the answer is not clear, I'd argue that this is another sign of very poor writing. We should be able to find the answers ourselves by watching the show, and the show never explicitly stated anything. If the writing leaves enough room for theories like these to pop up and start picking up steam, that room at some point or another has to be filled, and then you are risking a lot. The answers that you're gonna be filling that room with can and probably will upset a lot of people. So I'd argue, whilst shipping culture in a way can be key to a success of a show, like, I don't think it's smart to just like leave it open to interpretation like this for so long, just to then turn your back on everyone in the final episodes of your show. All of that weird and pretty much surface level writing, especially when it comes to Will aside, I think it's time that we focus on the big elephant in the room. The reason why we are all here today, the reason why I am talking about Stranger Things today on this channel. And that is, of course, the coming out scene in episode 7.
It doesn't matter if you love him or capital H-I-M.
Coming out scenes are extremely important. You will hear that from every queer person you encounter, no matter what their lived experience as a queer person is. No matter the outcome, these moments kind of define our lives in a way. That's why when a show does a coming out scene for its character, it has the potential to have a lot of people, identify with that scene, with that character, with what they're going through, and possibly with the outcome of the coming out as well. But this one was horrible on all fronts, actually. There have been a lot of memes regarding this specific coming out scene, and like, I do kind of find them funny in a way. Like, some of them are actually very funny. Some of them, not so much. And I think it's very clear that some people are making fun of it in like a lighthearted way. And it doesn't come from the place of homophobia, for example, but the line is very thin with this one. This coming out scene, in my opinion, felt like some sort of like intervention. Like, it genuinely looked like Will was being sat down by half of the cast so that they could tell him to like stop drinking because he's killing the family or something. He's doing a fucking Comic-Con panel in front of half of this town's population. Like, what the hell is this? We all probably have seen that edited picture that's been making rounds on social media. And honestly, it's not even like that much of a caricature of that scene. Like, that's genuinely how it felt to me. The writing in this is just comically bad. This My Little Pony-ass sequence when everybody's being like, oh, or me, and they come up to him to like hug him and be like supportive or whatever. Like, Oh my God. Actually, no, I think I need to put some more respect on My Little Pony because that show genuinely had good writing. And I would say it was like twice as good as Stranger Things ever was. But I don't think most of you are ready for that conversation yet. One of the funniest things I saw about this specific scene was people talking about Millie Bobby Brown's performance in it. Because, I mean, like, she looked so, like, disinterested in a way. And, like, many people were joking that she was, like, thinking about getting the car and driving him over because, you know, there's that famous meme going around that apparently Millie Bobby Brown hates people who are slightly fruity, you know?
Do you have a hatred towards the LGBT community?
Yes.
And I'm assuming that includes RuPaul?
Yes.
So you're homophobic?
I am.
And I mean, it is funny, but then you look at the actual scene and like, why does no one give a fuck? There are very few characters in this scene that are actually like performing anything. I would say it's Joyce, it's Jonathan, and maybe Robin. Well, no, not maybe Robin. Robin is actually like a highlight in the scene, acting wise. The rest of them are sitting there just like, okay, and why do we need to know that? And mind you, this is a rural town in the 80s in Indiana, a very, very famous red state. And you mean to tell me that none of these people are homophobic? Will is doing a Comic-Con panel about his sexuality in front of like 20 different people, and none of them are homophobic? I didn't check this before writing my notes and before filming this. I believe that in season 1 and season 2, some of them have said like homophobic slurs. So which one is it then? I saw a tweet somewhere that was saying basically something along the lines that maybe that's why Erica wasn't really that much in that scene, because she could have been the one to like say something. And honestly, that made me laugh a little. Actually, more than a little, come to think of it. But Erica has a pass on being homophobic. She's such a girl boss. I love her. The timing of this is also awful. Like, this is episode 7. This is the penultimate episode of the series. And the entire season, you're spending time to make sure everyone feels the urgency of the situation. Like, you know, you have Vecna kidnapping these kids and, you know, everything can go fuck itself in any moment. And you're over there sitting everyone down and being like, hello, I listened to Lady Gaga. And that's the moment you pick. Like, there was a way to do this without it feeling so anticlimactic. My personal little pet peeve with this scene specifically is that none of the characters in it are allowed to say the word gay. None. Robin cannot say it when she's coming out to Steve. Her entire relationship with Vicky actually gets developed off screen. We only see like highlights of it, which, granted, I'm still happy we get to see them, but like, I honestly would have liked to see them like actually develop that relationship. I would have liked to see how it began and how they sort of, you know, started as a couple. But we cannot see it. And Will can't say the word gay either. This is his coming out and he cannot say it. No one else can either. Why are we so afraid of the word gay? I very much understand that this show is set in the 80s. And of course, there was a lot of stigma around gay people specifically around that time. But let's not pretend that the Duffer Brothers ever cared about time accuracy in this show. Like, they have in the past jumped over very small, like insignificant details to further the story that personally don't really feel that 80s to me. So like, why can't we also jump over this? Why can't he just say it? Repeat the word gay as much as you can to scare the Duffer Brothers. I hate that we are using Tammy as a synonym for I had a gay crush. What does she have to do with anything? Like, just say you had a gay crush on someone. Just say it. It's such a small little detail, but I think it tells me everything I need to know about the writers of the show, actually. And also, maybe, just maybe, don't out someone when you're coming out. As far as we are concerned, the only people to know about Robin are Steve and Will. No one else knows. And you're just casually making her a part of your coming out. Like, that is main character syndrome if I've ever seen one. Let her do what she wants. Don't insinuate anything. Let her have her own moment. It was crazy to me that he just like fully practically outed her in front of everyone. And also, I love that these writers just fully went like, oh, sure, yeah, Robin is gonna be 100% fine with this, and everybody's gonna like accept her, and no one's gonna really talk about it because it doesn't matter, and we're all gay and happy. Actually, no, we're not gay. We all have our Tammy, and we're all happy, and yay, put me out of my misery now.
Hello, I'm gonna be interjecting slightly because there are a few things that I forgot to say or that I came up with post filming this video. So just beware that sometimes the setting is gonna change a bit. I do kind of find it like almost slightly insulting that the Duffers went just like, oh, remember, friends of Tammy, if you have a gay crush, they might not like you back. Some people are straight, silly. The way they approached that was just very weird. It feels almost like condescending in a way. Like, normally I wouldn't pay that much attention to this, but knowing how many flaws there are specifically to the queer characters in Stranger Things, this just like, I don't know, this was very apparent, and it also just kind of adds the salt to the wound, in my opinion.
Apparently, this scene was shot for 12 continuous hours. They have so many takes of this scene. And I mean, if this was the best take they could find, I question the logic behind even doing this scene in the first place. However, this is actually not the like biggest thing that really makes me scratch my head when it comes to this specific scene, because we have seen some interesting things being said by both the creators of the show and also some of the actors that point to this scene being very, very weird to them as well. I would like to quote this interview specifically that Noah Schnapp did, and he said the following words about this specific scene. I remember wondering, are they gonna write it? And then we get here and they wrote it not just with Joyce, but with the entire cast standing there, like a press conference. I gotta be honest, when everyone had to be like, and me, I was like, is that gonna work? Spoiler alert, it didn't. If your main actor doesn't feel confident about the scene and feels like there's something wrong about it, maybe there's something wrong about it. Then you get the 12 hours of shoots and reshoots coming into play again, because we get another quote, this time from Sean Levy, who is one of the producers and directors of the show. Sean Levy had the following things to say about the coming out scene that Will had. Those cutaways to Jonathan, to Robin, to Max, to Mike, those are just authentic reactions of Noah's castmates and friends as their body gave a powerhouse performance in an all-timer of a scene. This makes me think that they had an actual issue separating the actor from the character that they are portraying. What do you mean by authentic reactions? Why do we need authentic reactions? This is a show. Just give them a good script, get them to act their reactions out as the characters they're portraying, and you're gonna be golden. Why do they have to be like authentic? And why does it have to be related to the fact that they're castmates and they're friends and their buddies? Like, it has nothing to do with that. It's characters. So what in the hell is this? Like, what in the method acting is this take? That all makes me understand even more why certain people could have been very, very uncomfortable because of this scene. Like, it's clear that the Duffers fully just put Noah Schnapp before the script and we're like, okay, you're gonna act it out. And I think that's what the main difference is between specifically Robin and Will's coming out scenes. From what I know, Maya Hawke had a lot, and I mean a lot of input into her own coming out scene as Robin in season 3. She had a lot of creative liberties. She talked with the Duffers a lot about how the scene should look like. And you can tell that they listened to her because the scene ends up being really, really good. On the other hand, they just handed Noah a script and were like, okay, go and act it out for 12 hours. Why was that approach different? And also, you're telling me that these are like the authentic reactions of his castmates, of his friends. So like, if this is like so personal to him and you're writing it to be so personal to him, why not allow him to have more input? I don't know, just a thought though. Now, important thing to note here, and I have to kind of put like the allegedly marker on this section because apparently there are some things that have leaked from the cut scenes that didn't make it into the season, which change a lot. At the time of me filming, nothing has been released, nothing has been confirmed. However, allegedly, there are scenes between Will and Mike that were cut. There was also an entire subplot with Vecna that was cut. Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I actually had the problem with this scene. Like, I'm gonna talk about it a little bit more when we're gonna get into like the fixing of the scene, what I would personally change about it. And let's just say that this is a problem. This is a big problem. But now let's talk about how this specific coming out scene could have been better.
Is your family accepting of your LGBTQ lifestyle?
First of all, don't make Will come out in front of Half Hawkins. What that idea out the window immediately. And I also argue that more public coming outs work for characters that are in some shape or way popular. Like I think back to Villa in Young Royals, who has a full-on coming out in season 2. Spoiler alert, I'm so sorry. Which is a public announcement because he is the Prince of Sweden. He is the Crown Prince of Sweden. Meanwhile, Will is just some guy that lives in that neighborhood. He doesn't matter that much. Give him a moment to breathe. Make it intimate. Make it personal. He should come out to Joyce, Jonathan, maybe Mike. But specifically, I think the scene should have been between him, Jonathan, and Joyce. And then he could have had a separate scene for Mike to explain to him like how he feels and why he feels that way, you know, and kind of, I don't know, make everything clear, I guess. The way that that scene in the show plays out, you kind of have to assume that Mike understands what Will means by saying that he has a Tammy. And like, it's said without being said, but I actually wish that it was like a full conversation between the two, like a full conversation without just like weird looks and assuming. Like, these are practically grown-ups, right? Like I think they're close to being the age of adults in the show. I mean, of course they already are like all fully grown up in real life, but in the show I think they're like closer to being adults. So like make them talk about their feelings. I don't think it's that big of a problem. And if you want to come out to all of the other characters, make it quick. Don't make it a public service announcement like you're, I don't know, tapping on a glass, standing at a wedding and being like, hello everybody, I am homosexual. Like, don't do that. Let's say that they are like on some sort of mission and they are like about to, I don't know, hit Vecna's lair, whatever the hell, and they're like prepping for the mission, you know, checking if they have enough ammo for the demo dogs or whatever. And he's just like, hello guys, by the way, I like Lady Gaga and I am gay. And make it quick, make it snappy, because he doesn't need to have all these sobby moments with everybody. It doesn't matter. They don't care enough about him in order to do this. It feels very out of character for them and also for him. Actually, I would say most of the problems that this scene specifically has kind of disappear when you remove the, you know, oxygen ceiling, unnecessary set pieces that are there, because suddenly there's no room for Will to out Robin. There is no conversation about Tammy. There's no like weird scene about everybody showing him his support. Suddenly it feels way more natural and less like fabricated. Most of the awkwardness of the scene suddenly just vanishes. Another thing that I think they could have improved is have queer people involved in this creation, because this script, you can very clearly tell this script never touched a hand of a queer person until Noah Schnapp got his hands on it and they told him to just like act it out. There was no proofreading of this, and if there was, this scene would have looked drastically different. I was taking notes for this video in the middle of the night, by the way. I slept 5 hours today, and one of the suggestions I have in the fixing the coming out scene in this section of the video is send Noah Schnapp to an acting school. But I mean, did I lie though? So now let's move on to some other great or not so great coming out scenes and what makes them so good or so bad.
Fuck out my way when you see me. I'm rolling with the LGBT.
Okay, so spoiler alert for the following shows in this section: Heartstopper, Young Royals, Heated Rivalry, Glee, and Fate the Winx Saga. I think one of the best coming out scenes I think I've ever seen in a show is Nick Nelson and his mom in Heartstopper season 1. This is sort of like the perfect coming out scene. The acting in it, the script writing in it, it feels natural, but it also isn't afraid of what it is. You know, the Duffer Brothers, they can't even say the word gay in their script. Meanwhile, you have Nick Nelson fully trying to lecture his mom about bisexuality and having to be reminded that his mother isn't from the 18th century. This feels like a real conversation, but also the ending of it and how sweet it is. It always like makes me very, very happy whenever I rewatch Heartstopper, and I've rewatched it plenty of times. I love that show. And whenever anyone talks badly about it, like a part of me dies, because you will not talk about, the writing in Stranger Things like as like one of the best things ever. But then you, in the same breath, look at Heartstopper and like, ugh, cringy. Like, tell me you haven't watched it without telling me you haven't watched it. This show should be a mandatory watch for, I think for everybody. Actually, everybody should at some point have to watch this show because it's so good and so educational in the same way. Like, I love that. When it comes to young girls and Ville, I think this is a great example of public coming out, and I've already talked about it in the previous section as well. It's dramatic, and it comes from a storyline that is actually, when you really think about it, pretty similar to the Vecna pressuring Will to come out storyline in Stranger Things Season 5. And here you get to see Ville come into his own, take the wheel himself, and come out on his own terms. It's all regardless of the massive restrictions that are put on him because he's a royal. And I think this scene shows very well how public coming out can be very, very empowering. One of my most recent obsessions has been Heated Rivalry. I've watched that show like multiple times at this point. I am obsessed with it. It's so, so good. And it has some of my favorite coming out moments I've seen in a while. Specifically, I want to mention Shane and his mom, which I would say it's a similar scene to Nick Nelson and his mom as well. I think there are very similar things said there, although I think Shane, you can tell that he's freaked out because he's not really coming out on his own terms either. It's kind of like he was, if you have seen the finale, you know what happens. He kind of gets walked on when he's kissing Ilya, and then he kind of has to make things straight and kind of talk to his mom. And he first like starts apologizing for the way that he is, which first of all, heartbreaking, but like also been there, done that. I think many queer people watching that probably related to that heavily. And the way that his mom reacts to that, and she's like, you have nothing to apologize for. It's me who should be apologizing because I didn't make you feel confident and comfortable enough for you to be able to share this with me. And that also being something that we see in the Heartstopper scene that I mentioned prior. That's just beautiful writing, and that's something that I feel like many queer people would like to hear from their parents. I think another great example of a very, very public coming out is Scott, Hunter, and Kip in episode 5 of Heated Rivalry. This scene, many people called it unnecessary, and many people like really dislike the relationship because they don't have angst in the relationship. Really, they are like two adults that are able to talk about their emotions freely without weird things happening, unlike Shane and Ilya, which, by the way, love them too, but like I would say that's mostly why many people dislike Scott and Kip. But this scene, just in general, Heated Rivalry is such a beautifully well done show. It's so cinematic, but this specific scene is like, it's straight out of a rom-com, and it's so beautiful. It is very empowering too. Like, this is a person who has been in the spotlight for a while and felt like they were pressured to being something that they are not. And finally, they get to decide for themselves, and they choose love, they choose authenticity, regardless of what the reception can be. And I think it's beautiful to see. Here you can also mention another coming out from Heated Rivalry. I know, I've been talking about it for a little too long, probably for most of your liking, but Shane and Rose, that conversation was so well done. First of all, I just find it very funny that Rose like immediately clocks his tea, and she's like, I know exactly what's going on here. And she almost like breaks that fact to him. And then he sort of agrees, and the way that the friendship works out and the way that we see that dynamic, and specifically that scene, it's just, it really did something to me. Like, it really made me feel happy. And, I was happy to see Shane be accepted by at least someone. And then when it comes to Stranger Things, I think Robin has a great coming out, just in general. I think that scene is one of my favorite scenes of the show, actually. This is another conversation with just a friend. It feels earnest, but so emotional. Like, you can tell that Maya Hogg had a hand in this because she acts this out so well. It was coming from the heart. And again, yeah, she never says the word gay because the Duffers are afraid of that word, but either way, even if that's a problem, she still delivers an incredible performance that really, really, really touched me on a very emotional level. And actually, I don't think that this scene was ever received as badly as the Will scene was. Like, yeah, probably some people had a problem with it. And for granted, I wasn't like that active in the Stranger Things fandom in, around the airing of season 3. I don't even remember what year that was. God damn it. But her episode, when you look at the ratings, for example, it has not been review bombed. So there's that. I also don't remember people laughing at this. I don't remember people telling me that this is woke propaganda. So maybe if you execute your coming out scene well, people are going to be less inclined to be homophobic towards the character that's coming out. I don't know, just a thought.
I found it funny that I forgot about Dead Boy Detectives because this is probably one of the best examples of a coming out scene that is like the closest to what they were trying to do in Stranger Things. I love the coming out scene in Dead Boy Detectives. Basically, it's Charles and it's Edwin, and they are like going back from hell, and Edwin tells Charles that he's in love with him, even though that love is not, shared back. It's a very one-sided kind of relationship, just like Will and Mike. But it is a very like bittersweet moment, and it's also very understanding. It feels like a conversation between two friends. It doesn't feel like some sort of, I don't even know what to call the coming out scene in Stranger Things. Like it feels like so naive and so surface level. This one doesn't feel like that because you can tell that the love is shared. It's just shared in different ways, and it doesn't really change anything between their dynamic. It's a sort of like revelation that Edwin has to get off his chest, but I think arguably it's what brings them closer to each other and why they are better friends moving forward. But we never see that with Mike and Will. I mean, we kind of do. There is that dialogue, but we're gonna get into that later. My point is, it doesn't feel condescending. It feels real.
One coming out scene that I've always had like mixed feelings about, but I mostly still liked, was in Glee, and that is Santana. She comes out to her grandma as a lesbian, and listen, Glee does some very, very interesting things with their characters. I think that this is actually one of the more like serious conversations they even have on Glee. So I'm like happy that it happened, but also this coming out specifically stands out in my mind because she does not get positive reception from that at all. Like her grandma is very clearly not happy about this. I think it's also important to think about like the variety of reactions from coming out, and I think that's why specifically that one stands out in my mind because it's one of the only like negative receptions that I can possibly think of. Mostly in media you see a positive reception, I would say. Mostly. This one, however, is different, and I think that's also important because, not every coming out story ends well. Not every coming out is received well. And I think it's also important to highlight that. And then one negative coming out, aside from the Will one, which this entire video is kind of centered on, this one, it was really, really difficult to think of like really, really bad coming out scenes, really, because I don't really consume poorly made queer media. I just don't really vibe with that. I don't really like that. However, Fate the Winx saga. Unfortunately, I am a Winx fan. I was kind of raised on this cartoon, even though I wasn't allowed to watch it, really, because I was assigned male at birth, but I still watched it either way. Fate the Winx saga is like a loose adaptation of Winx Club, but it's horrible on all fronts. And I unfortunately watched all 2 seasons of it, and I think it was cancelled deservedly. But Tara coming out as a lesbian. Ooh, that was not... And I don't think it's the fault of the actress. I think it's the fault of the script. Actually, I would say the scene itself is pretty cool. Like, it's really... I think it can be understood as like a very touching scene. The problem with Tara, though, is this comes out of completely nowhere. Like, she never has moments where you can like think of her as like, oh, maybe she likes that girl that she's like looking at. She never interacts with a singular female character in a way that would suggest that she's anything other than straight. The only thing she ever does is kick some guy's ass because he's being mean to her. And like, women can do that regardless of sexuality. So like, what's the tie in there? With all of these examples very, very shortly discussed, I think we can move on to, I think, the most important part of this video, because ultimately the most important thing is not that the scene was poorly executed or that the writing in Stranger Things is bad. No, I think you have to look at sort of the bigger scheme of things, especially when you're talking about characters that are supposed to be representing minorities.
Do you have a hatred towards the LGBT community?
Yes.
The worst part about this whole scene, in my opinion, is not how poorly it was done, but the reception it got. This was so laughably bad that it's giving active fuel to homophobes who watch this show and who are now hating on it because it's the woke propaganda. They are actively making fun of the queer people that are being represented on their screens. And as a result, everyone feels worse. And then you give them this half-assed coming out scene that looks like something that came from, I don't know, Mia and I, literally. And suddenly, it's very easy to make fun of it because it's not a serious moment. It doesn't feel like a serious moment, at least. And I can tell you, if this scene was executed well, if it was acted out well, if the script was good in it, if it was a actual like impactful moment of the show, it would not have been received that way. Like the memes, of course there would be some, because some people are going to be homophobic at the end of the day, but you wouldn't have like the review bombing of this episode. You wouldn't have all the very, very clearly homophobic memes that are being made about Will currently. That just wouldn't happen. And listen, some of these memes are funny. I think some of them do come from a place of critique. I've seen a lot that are very, very funny. But then the line is very, very thin when it comes to ones that come from, you know, a place of somebody who likes the show and who isn't homophobic, but who just is pointing out some flaws in the way that the show is written, to homophobia. And I think that's entirely why the rating of this episode is so bad. Like, when you look at the rest of season 5, why are these ratings so high compared to episode 7? None of these episodes are better than episode 7. Maybe the first one. The first one was actually pretty impressive. The rest of them, trash, dog shit, actually. All of these episodes have been absolutely ass. They've been booty cheeks level. And this is the one that everybody keeps on dunking on because it features a coming out from a gay character. Like, you can tell that this is homophobia. If you want to review bomb this show, do it for the entire season. And I also find it very funny that everybody's like now, oh, they're pushing this like gay woke agenda down our throats or whatever. Meanwhile, like, I think season 1 immediately starts with hinting that Will is not straight. And if you have eyes, if you have ears, if you have any sembling of like media literacy, reading comprehension, hearing comprehension, you will see that this is not a straight person. And here also the Byler shippers kind of contribute, because I've seen a lot of upsets from these people that Byler didn't happen. I personally, this wasn't a ship that I've ever really cared about. I never really cared about any of the ships aside from Robin and Vicky and Max and Lucas, those two. And the rest of them, I couldn't give lesser of a fuck, actually. But I do think that Byler shippers review bombing this episode is not good either, because you're actively contributing to what the homophobes are trying to accomplish, which is to show that they don't want to see queer characters, they don't want to see queer stories on their screen represented. And you're actively contributing to that because your little ship didn't happen. Like, yes, it might have been queerbait. Regardless of how you think of it, it might have been queerbait. But that isn't the reason to team up with the people who are actively opposing against a queer person even being on a screen. Yesterday, when I was writing this video, I encountered this tweet by this user named David, who directed it at Stranger Things writers and said the following words. Stranger Things writers, congratulations. Congratulations on turning the queer community into the target of a new wave of mockery and hate. Congratulations on making a scene that was so painful and uncomfortable to watch that even the actor who performed it has talked about the trauma it caused, and seen that, due to how it was framed and placed in the story, inevitably became the subject of mockery. You created a show about outcasts, about self-acceptance, freedom, and the courage to be yourself. And yet within the same story, you chose to treat the only main gay character with extraordinary cruelty. On top of that, you placed his moment of coming out at a crucial point, right before the finale, and at a very heart of the plot. Why? It was entirely predictable that this scene would be mocked, yet you went forward with it. How it connects with entire build-up that was created within all these seasons. After all the support the queer community has given the show over the years, it feels as that support was repaid by turning us into the punchline of a joke. Whilst, yes, I do think that this tweet specifically is very dramatic in places, Unfortunately, I have to agree. I think ultimately, aside from the homophobes who of course suck majorly and who are the main problem here, like they shouldn't be reacting like this to a character in a show, the Stranger Things writers and producers are to blame for this. They created a show that actively feels like a mockery of itself, but also of its audience. To me, this all makes it twice as difficult to provide any sort of constructive criticism about the show when you have people divided into these like two extreme camps, one being, you know, the Byler shippers and the other one being homophobes, all collectively bombing the episode. And whatever opinion you have, whether it's somewhat critical of the episode, I think it's very easy to label it as just like homophobia or something like that. So it's a very thin line that I feel like I'm personally walking by making this video even. Of course, the homophobic camp is obviously way worse, but the other one isn't helping either. That leaves very little room for any constructive criticism to be said and to be put into place. This is another tweet that I saw whilst I was making this video, and this is from a user called Mike Wheeler Must Die, which arguably very, very funny. But this user said, "Being gay fucking sucks, man. You think the coming out scene of your favorite character was terribly executed and overall bad, but homophobes are hating on it because it's a coming out scene and making fun of said character, so now you can't even complain in peace." That's exactly the problem. Like, I am complaining, and I know a lot of people are complaining too, but now you cannot even complain in peace, and you feel like this need almost of defending the show in a way, because you see how many, you know, homophobes, like fucking Elon Musk, is engaging in discourse around this scene. Like, what is he doing there? What is the point? Queer characters are ultimately incredibly important to queer people, but also not queer people who are watching the shows. And I also understand the will to stand behind these characters and defend them at every given moment, because they are important to you and they mean something to you. They make you feel represented. Trust me, again, been there, done that. I identify with this mindset a lot, I would say. And like, personally, even though I don't like the character of Will, I would like to see a world in which Will is a well-written queer character, fully realized, and one that, I don't know, doesn't feel rushed, doesn't feel this sloppy. I would really like to see that. But ultimately, the problem here lies with the writers, the producers, but also the company that distributes the show. Companies like, for example, Netflix, who of course produces Stranger Things, see that queer audiences are an easy target to market to. And that is fully because we do like seeing our authentic stories being portrayed on screen. We do like seeing characters that we can identify with. They think giving us crumbs in forms of like queerbaiting or like poorly executed scenes is going to be enough. But then when the homophobic backlash starts, they are gonna be siding with that side rather than with our side, because that side makes them a little bit more money. Yeah, they basically turn their back on us whenever we stop making their money. And that majorly sucks. Just look at Netflix's track record with queer shows though. Like, you have the cancellation of First Kill, which was like one of the best received actually sapphic shows that Netflix has ever put out. It did very, very well, and then it got cancelled immediately. You have them practically making She-Ra and the Princesses of Power lost media at this point by taking it out of the streaming service. Now you have this. It just like, it forms a very, very clear idea of what companies like these are. They are never our friends. They use us for profit. And then when they don't have enough profit from us, they turn their backs on us. And just because they are still promoting and giving new things to like Heartstopper doesn't clean their slate. To them, it's business. And in this current political climate where conservatism is on the rise, queerness just doesn't sell as well.
Forgot to mention here that the lesson that Netflix is going to take from this is not that they should write queer characters better, or not just in general Netflix, other streaming companies as well, is that queer people don't sell, and that they probably should just like start dialing back on the number of queer characters they have. And I don't think that's what we want. Ultimately, right?
Not to say that this is the case for every show and every streaming company out there. Again, I do not want to exaggerate too much. Look at something like, for example, Heat the Rivalry. This is a new hit. This is something that literally just happened. And this is a phenomenal show, phenomenally done, phenomenally shot, written, acted out. Everything about this show is perfect. This is a sex-positive, queer-centered show that tells the stories of queer individuals in a space that doesn't really allow for anything other than heteronormativity, and how they sort of forge their own path in said space. But still, that's not a Netflix show. That's a Crave Canada show. Yes, HBO might have helped to distribute it, but they didn't create it, they didn't produce it, they didn't finance it either. That's a small, pretty much indie production in a way, and if the internet didn't do its job, it would not have been promoted that way. Ultimately, even if representation is done poorly, it can still mean a lot to some people. And that is whether they are in the closet, whether they are openly queer, or whether they are not queer at all. It can also help to educate others about our struggles, and I think that goes for every kind of representation. The point of this video is not to tell you that you shouldn't like this scene. Like, again, opinions are like assholes. Everyone has them, I think, right? You can love this scene, you can like it, you can relate to it, you can enjoy watching it. It really is none of my business, and I will never tell you to stop enjoying it. And even if, in my opinion, I think that this scene is shit, even if it affects one person positively, that's a good thing. And that's ultimately going to be a win for the community. However, I do also think that our expectations of queer media should be higher. We shouldn't have to settle for less. We should expect more. And I mean, we definitely should be expecting more from shows that have so much money put into them, like Stranger Things. This is sort of the end of the video, and I just want to close it off by saying some other things about this specific season and Stranger Things as a whole, and where I think this is going. For context, I am filming this on 30th or 29th of January. I forgot what day it is today, but basically I have not seen the finale yet. The finale is not out, and all I can say is I kind of think that Stranger Things is sort of going to get the Game of Thrones treatment when it ends. Basically, if you don't know, and I mean, I don't know either because I haven't watched Game of Thrones, but if you look at the ratings of the episodes of Game of Thrones, you can tell that it's a great show until you get to that last season. Season 5 has been bad in most aspects. The colors they use, the script writing, the acting. The acting looks like a parody of somebody doing SNL skits. You have very weird plots, you have rushed character arcs, and half of these characters aren't even doing anything really. Half of them are actual set design pieces, as I like to call them. So yeah, in a way, I do think that this season is ruining the legacy that Stranger Things had created for itself. I don't think that the finale is going to save it at all. I think there's no saving this season. I think this is going to crash and burn like everybody has been sort of expecting, especially after the first 4 seasons. I don't really think that the finale is going to change anything. I think this show is going to crash and burn just like Game of Thrones did. And if the finale changes anything, I'm going to insert a clip of me talking about it now.
I am Jasmine Masters, and I have something to say. RuPaul's Drag Race has fucked up drag. Bottom line, cut and dry.
It was just in general very like anticlimactic, but what really stood out to me in regards to this video are a couple different things. That conversation about Mike and Will being best friends was like weird. The funniest thing is I believe someone like predicted the entire conversation like months in advance, like word to word. For a show that's supposed to be like revolutionary when it comes to its writing and plot and characters, like, girl. And also I was praising them in this video for how they treated Robin specifically and Vicky, but this finale. First of all, where are they? Where is their date at Enzo's? Like, you're giving closure to all of these characters. Why not them? Will randomly having a boyfriend is like, okay, good for him, I guess. But I also like wish that we could like, I don't know, see them meet for the first time. Like, Will's sexuality has been such a like weirdly important topic this season, and it just gets closed in like 5 seconds in this scene that, oh, like he moved on from Mike and now he has a boyfriend. Like, cool, I guess, but like, I don't know, maybe we could like develop on that a little, just a tad. Very anticlimactic again. Just in general though, this finale left me very, very underwhelmed. We were promised this genre-defining season, and instead the fan theories ended up being more interesting than this generic-ass ending. This whole time people were saying that we, like the audience, were being Vecna, and that's why some things like didn't make sense, some memories didn't fit, some colors were changing, and like, turns out no. Turns out that was just all like a very, very big fan theory that honestly I was starting to believe. But instead, it's just them being sloppy writers and directors. The Duffers really made no risks this season. And I think for a final season, I would much rather you swing big and miss than not try to swing at all. The Duffer Brothers spent 2 seasons building up Vecna and retconning him to being this like all-powerful thing. And then they just defeat him twice in season 4 and in season 5 in a matter of minutes. The entire mystery of the Upside Down ends up being just like dumb slop. No one dies. Like, every interesting relationship is practically ruined except for Lucas and Max. They're the only ones that actually get treated somewhat well. And that's it. That's Stranger Things for you. A show that started out as a revolutionary production that failed to stick the landing.
And I still don't think that a finale of a season is able to fix every mistake that the season had up until that point. Like, I just don't think, maybe some things are going to be fixed. Maybe. But I don't think there's any saving Stranger Things at this point. It makes me sad to see a legacy like Stranger Things be ruined, because you can tell this was such a cultural moment back in the day when it first premiered and the first season started to happen. And now it just feels like a source of frustration for everybody. I just hope that we can leave this show behind and focus on maybe better written media in 2026. Let's just say that. I mean, we know Netflix isn't leaving the show behind because they are making like a spin-off series to it, which like, haven't we suffered through enough at this point? Haven't you learned your lesson? Look at the fucking ratings. Look at how poorly this has been received. But they're gonna probably be putting more spin-offs and more shows that have to do with Stranger Things because it makes them money, because ultimately some people are gonna watch that. I hate how the entertainment industry works. Honestly, hate. But yeah, I think this is the end of the video. I really want to thank you for sitting through the entire thing. If you did, I really appreciate it. I want to hear all of your thoughts about what I was yapping about and what you personally think of the scene in Stranger Things of Will coming out, or what do you think of coming outs in media at large. Tell me everything, however you feel. I am very interested to see other perspectives be featured in the comment section as well. I would really like to discuss with some of you if you have any ideas of how this could have possibly been fixed, and do you maybe think that the finale of the show can change anything? Let me know in the comments below. And yeah, just in general, thanks so much for watching till the end. I love you very much. And I would advise you to subscribe, because I post content on YouTube weekly. And next week, you're going to see a reaction from me, actually, an album reaction. This has been requested that I do for like a while now. Like, people have been begging me to do this, and I am going to be experiencing Ethel Cain for the very first time. That's the next week's video, and I think you're going to like it. If you want to see me cry, because I have already recorded it, that's the video. But yeah, just in general, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next week. And until then, take care and bye.